And going up against a very familiar squad on Yuri's side of the field, which is going to be Metagross, Incineroar, Zapdos, Landorus, Amoonguss, and Tapu Fini.
So it's a pretty cool matchup here. I think Yuri's side, we see a lot of Pokemon we are used to seeing from him, and I think that's just a smart play on his side. A lot of players kind of take big risks with their teams to the World Championships. I think Yuri is probably the player you'd expect to do best if everyone is playing really standard. So, why not make other people prove that they can beat him? Ashton's side, we almost never see Suicune, and I'm actually really excited to see Aegislash from him. I'm hoping that winds up being a key player in this matchup. Ashton's really known for making great reads, and what better Pokemon to do that with than Aegislash, where you can catch your opponent not, kind of expecting those King Shields and get those big free attacks off, or perhaps take the wrong risk and just lose Aegislash for nothing.
And a really interesting lead matchup from both trainers here in the second round of Day 2 of the Pokemon 2018 World Championships. Alessio Yuri Boschetto going for Metagross and Zapdos up against Ashton Cox, Suicune, and Tapu Koko.
A lot of fun things can happen here. Certainly, Metagross not going to want to take a potential Z move from that Tapu Koko, especially while he's trying to figure this out. Also a little weird to see Tapu Koko if you don't know a team, or Ashton's team, since he's known for using the more supportive Tapu Koko, so you kind of have to be a little bit more cautious early in this match than usual. Also keep in mind here, but even though the electric terrain is set on the field, Zapdos isn't touching the floor, so it won't get a damage boost if it tries to use an electric type attack on Suicune.
But there is the opportunity for both trainers to set up speed control here. Zapdos and Suicune both have access to Tailwind. Suicune also has access to Icy Wind as well, which could prove devastating going up against this Mega Metagross and the Zapdos later on in the game. We see Mega Metagross activating its Keystone, going to trade its Clear Body for Tough Claws. And there's an Electro Web coming out from Tapu Koko. That supportive set coming out once again. Speed dropping on Metagross and on Zapdos here. So that's really great for Ashton. Some nice chip damage as well. Ice Punch coming out from Metagross, going into Tapu Koko, doing some hefty damage there, leaving it just over half its HP as Tailwind is set up from Zapdos. And Suicune, last to move, will use Tailwind as well.
This is an interesting play. Ashton, one of the few times you'll see a player use two different speed control moves on the same turn. Really pays off, though. That Electro Web going to slow down both Metagross and Zapdos. So even though his Pokemon would have been a little bit on the slower end without, or at least Suicune would have been on the slower end without the tail, or with the two Tailwinds, Electro Web potentially helping Suicune outspeed these Pokemon. And now if Ashton makes any switches, likely to gain the speed advantage. Cute little play there, but a lot of information gained for Yuri.
And another Electro Web coming out from Tapu Koko, really pushing down this agenda of dropping speed on Metagross and Zapdos, both at 2 stages of decreased speed. Reveals the Stomping Tantrum, not expecting the switch this time. Tapu Koko will eat that and go down here. KO for Alessio Yuri Boschetto, taking the Pokemon advantage here as Snarl comes out from Suicune. Only really going to be affecting Zapdos' special attack stat here, but some nice chunk damage onto that Metagross as well. But Yuri must be happy that that annoying Tapu Koko has been removed.
Yeah, it's a difficult Pokemon to play against, and the Thunderbolt coming in, not going to do much damage after that Snarl. The Electro Web paying some dividends there, where Suicune able to lower Zapdos' attack, or special attack, before being hit because of the speed drop on the previous turn. I think both sides probably liking parts of how that previous play played out. Certainly is Yuri, you can't be too upset, you just got a knockout. But I feel like Ashton sort of set up a board that he wanted also, doing a bunch of damage to these Pokemon and also lowering both of their speeds. Now he has the advantage for a couple of turns here. Likely going to want to try to knock out that Zapdos before it can use Tailwind again, so he can keep a speed advantage throughout the rest of the game. And with Metagross' health reduced so greatly, it's pretty dangerous for Yuri now if he's trying to keep that alive, especially since Tyranitar weak to most of Metagross' attacks. Certainly you'd like to preserve that if you can.
A very nice switch from Yuri here. Just going to drop an Intimidate onto that Tyranitar. It is a very powerful physical attacker, and that reduced stage of physical attack will be really vital, especially if Metagross wants to stick around here. Tyranitar just going for the Rock Slide here, going to be hitting both targets. Metagross taking not too much damage. Landorus taking a nice chunk of damage, though. We see the critical hit on Metagross as well, so not crazy amounts from that critical hit. Scald coming out, the double up going into Metagross. Very fine knockout from Ashton here. But both trainers are down to 3 Pokemon, and again, this speed control from Ashton proving really, really powerful.
Yeah, he had a pretty nice situation set up there where even though he'd lost the Pokemon first, Yuri didn't really have a whole lot of options there. It was dangerous to make a lot of switches. But Ashton also having to make it safe, where the damage that Metagross could have done potentially to Tyranitar was so great that he really had no choice other than to make sure he pinned it and got that knockout. So both sides pretty even here. Tailwind still in effect on both sides. The stat drops now removed other than the Intimidate on Tyranitar. And we've got this game tightened a little bit without the Tapu Koko and Metagross around.
It's also an information game at this point, guys, because obviously we've seen that a lot of these Pokemon have been used by both trainers all season, so it's more, do I expect the same builds or do I expect something new? We see a switch out from Tyranitar here, Salamence dropping an Intimidate onto that Landorus, reducing its physical attack by 1 stage. It's going to be kind of guess the Z move here. Zapdos reveals it going into that Suicune, but it looks like it's going to be a Groundium Z coming up for Landorus. No switch out from Alessio Yuri Boschetto's Z move. That Groundium Z Tectonic Rage will be doing some really big damage. If it goes into that Salamence slot, this could be a whiff though. It might want to go into that Suicune just for safety, and it does.
Yeah, it's a really, really critical move. You know, missing those Z moves can be game-losing. In this case, I think it really would have been a big swing, hitting the right target. The damage goes down, but Suicune is able to take the attack, heals up with the Mega Berry, and winds up at about the same spot where it started.
Excellent, excellent defensive build from Suicune here, but it does take a Thunderbolt for its trouble, leaving it just in range of that yellow HP bar. And we see the Ice Beam coming up, going to Landorus, and that's a big knockout. Ashton Suicune is putting in so much work here, Scott.
Yeah, that's a great play for Ashton. You know, the Intimidate lowering Landorus' attack just enough that Suicune's able to survive, eat that berry, heal up, pick up a knockout, and you know, still get enough health left where Sandstorm's not going to knock it out for a while, so Yuri kind of still has to deal with it. You don't want to allow Suicune to get a free Tailwind off, and you know, even its attacks now, you know, it can hit both of these Pokemon remaining for super effective damage, and Snarl even is a threat, right? Zapdos can no longer switch out with no Pokemon in the back. Really, everything that Suicune can do is still useful. A nice advantage for Ashton now.
Yes, and the Salamence not wanting to be able to be hit by something like a Hidden Power Ice from Zapdos if it has it. Incineroar has the opportunity to fake out one of these two Pokemon as well, stopping any potential further speed control from this Suicune. Salamence might want to switch out here into that Tyranitar, which will threaten both Zapdos and Incineroar with super effective Rock-type damage, but instead, Ashton just going to push his advantage, going to Mega Evolve with that Salamence. He's going to trade the Intimidate ability for that Aerialate ability, moving all of its normal type attacks into Flying type and getting a little boost too. Fake out coming out from this Incineroar, going into that Suicune, survives, still in the red HP range. Return coming out from Salamence, even with 1 stage of decreased physical attack. Incineroar surviving with just over half its HP as we see another Tailwind coming out from Zapdos. So Yuri really trying to push the envelope on his speed control here. Zapdos is going to be one of the key Pokemon from here. And we see a berry activating here, so we get some further information, both Ashton and us at home. Zapdos going to activate its Citrus Berry, getting some nice health here. And electric type attacks, ice type attacks are really the name of the game for Yuri to be able to hit all 3 of Ashton's Pokemon that are remaining.
Suicune going to take some damage to the Sandstorm here, and oh no, the Sandstorm Tyranitar created, knocking out one of Ashton's own Pokemon, and we wind up at a 2-2 score. I really like that return last turn by Ashton. The damage isn't massive, but it's pretty clear on Yuri's side you're going to want to use Fake Out on that Suicune to prevent Ashton from matching the Tailwind, so why not take the free damage with Salamence? Still in a pretty good spot, but this can kind of go both ways. We haven't learned a whole lot about what the Zapdos can do. Certainly, Tyranitar is a big problem here.
Yes.
Yuri's going to have to deal with this very quickly or hope for some Rock Slide misses or he is in trouble. But Zapdos does know some moves to survive for a while if it's able to deal with Tyranitar before it's knocked out.
It's going to deal with Salamence instead, though. That Thunderbolt going into it, leaving just under half HP. A knockoff coming out from this Incineroar, knocking off the weakness policy. That is a very big information gainer for Alessio Yuri Boschetto. A Dragon Dance coming out from Salamence on Ashton's side, gonna boost its speed, but also boost its attack stat as well. It's back to neutral as Tyranitar's Rock Slide, Zapdos avoids. That is not what he wanted to see. Incineroar taking a huge amount of damage, getting the knockout here. Yuri down to just 1 Pokemon remaining, and especially with Salamence boosting at that point, and he can't deal with both these Pokemon at the same time. Rock Slide is such a huge problem, especially now that there's only 1 Pokemon remaining on the field. Yeah,
definitely looking like he's not going to get enough Rock Slide misses to pull out of this one. I actually really like the knockoff, though. I think Yuri kind of just like, all right, it's not realistic that I'm going to pull back in Game 1. Let's get as much information as I can. Accidentally activating that weakness policy in Game 2 could easily have been game-losing. That is huge information to get out of a losing game.
We see the Protect coming out from Salamence, very safe play. Thunderbolt going out from Zapdos into that Tyranitar, doing not too much damage. The special defense boost from the Sandstorm, very potent here. And Ashton dancing on the screen with both Pokemon in the last 2 turns. He knows he's in Music City and really wants to get the party started. Zapdos really has to fear this game. I think Alessio knows he's losing here. He's trying to get as much information as possible. That Thunderbolt wasn't ever going to be able to knock out the Tyranitar, but it's all about getting the calculations right for next game.
Yeah, sort of a strange play, too. I don't know if Ashton's Pokemon just found themselves lost in the music here, but I'm surprised to see the Dragon Dance reveal.
And then we see the return going into Zapdos. Not too effective because of the flying type onto the electric type Pokemon. Another Thunderbolt from Zapdos into Salamence, which survives. That is a very nice survival for Ashton. We can see a bit more information about damage control. Crunch doesn't want to risk the Rock Slide at all, enough to knock out the final Pokemon for Alessio, and Ashton takes his first game.
Yeah, great first game there, but I don't know if I hate how that went if I'm Yuri. I feel like Ashton may have given a little more information than he really needed to. It's always tough to know how much of these information the players already have. Not only do players talk, but often, they'll run into each other in practice, or they'll have been using teams earlier in the season, and these top-level players are usually great at researching what their opponents are likely to use. But we saw everything that Tyranitar can do, all of its moves, other than what's most likely protect, and that weakness policy, an item that we probably weren't expecting. And I don't think Ashton really got anything out of any of that information being revealed. Tapu Koko being the more supportive set is kind of what we expect from Ashton, sort of his trademark set, and he's very effective at using it. But at least with Yuri now, all right, I lost game 1, but I learned a lot other than the 2 Pokemon that I didn't see at all, Amoonguss and Aegislash. I know what Ashton can do now, and that's going to make predicting the second game a little bit easier.
It seems that probably Yuri won't want to change up too many things. Having Incineroar and Landorus available to him is very, very good for being able to mitigate damage output from Salamence and Tyranitar. He needs to make sure, obviously with that weakness policy being revealed, that if he's going to be targeting that Tyranitar or targeting a switch-in from that Tyranitar, he gets that knockout quickly, because otherwise things could go snowballing very, very badly for him here. We're just about to jump into game 2. Alessio Yuri Boschetto of Italy going up against Ashton Cox here, who's 1-0 in this set. Really, really exciting game 2 as we go day 2 of the Pokemon 2018 World Championships.
So players can take up to 2 losses and still make it to the next stage. So this isn't an elimination match by any means, but you really don't want to take a loss in this second round, so pretty critical match here. The great adjustment I like on Yuri's side here is that he didn't lead Metagross this time. I feel like the thing that really went wrong from that first game, he lost Metagross really early, made it very tough to deal with Tyranitar, who has an advantage against many of his other Pokemon. I think he's going to want to be a little bit more conservative with Metagross if he has it this time, but for all of the talk about Yuri gaining a lot of information, we now see both of the Pokemon that didn't appear in the first game, so again, Yuri's going to have to start out this game with some question marks.
Landorus and Zapdos for Yuri, and Aegislash and Amoonguss for Ashton Cox. And this is something that we see trainers do quite often, that flip-flop between, oh, I had a dedicated mode last game, how about I bring something completely different this game to throw you off guard? And Aegislash has taken 1 stage of decreased physical attack, but most likely we've seen a lot of Aegislash running this season with that special attack focus. It does have access to a lot of physical moves. It might not be important. Zapdos forced to retreat here, doesn't want to eat a Z move, like a Ghostium Z-powered Never-Ending Nightmare. Tapu Fini's going to be coming in its place, setting up that Misty Surge. We see the Amoonguss retreating as well from Ashton, going into that Salamence, dropping a very important Intimidate here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a U-turn from Landorus. One of the weaknesses of Yuri's setup last game, he really didn't have any way to stop Spore with the 2 flying Pokemon. Yeah, Landorus just going to U-turn out of the battle here. Yuri kind of forced to make a very safe play where he had 2 Pokemon that weren't grounded, so he had to switch to Tapu Fini and then U-turn out to avoid a Spore. Earthquake and any potential Heat Wave could have done a lot of damage, but certainly wouldn't have been enough to stop Amoonguss from getting that Spore off, unless he wanted to go for a very aggressive turn 1 Z move and then opening himself up to whatever Aegislash does, allowing for a very safe substitute. That wound up being a really great play by Ashton, where he knew that he had Yuri and wasn't going to allow that free Spore, so able to get a nice substitute up, and this Aegislash is going to be very difficult to deal with.
Yes, especially if it's running that Z Crystal, or if it's got the leftovers, which a lot of Pokemon with Substitute do like to run, because it allows them to just keep healing back while still getting damage off. Zapdos in a position where it can threaten Salamence with some good damage, Tapu Fini also with super effective damage, but neither one of these guys wants to be taking a powerful special attack from that Aegislash.
The one great thing for Yuri, at least, is that getting Zapdos out, because Amoonguss had switched out previously, so you get to make that decision later. He can get the speed advantage with Tailwind again if he wants to, but not knowing what this Aegislash has, we see the item isn't leftovers. It's got to be a little bit scary.
Salamence is going to be Mega Evolving, dropping a return unintimidated into that Tapu Fini. So much damage as Calm Mind comes out from Yuri's side of the field, going to boost the special attack and special defense of that Tapu Fini by 1 stage each. And That's a really, really powerful chance, but Salamence obviously outspeeding both, and so does Aegislash, outspeeding that Zapdos here. Going to go into its sword form, its blade form, and drop a Shadow Ball as well. If this is going into the Tapu Fini, this could be disastrous, but it's going into that Zapdos as well, so just spreading out his damage as he goes. Really smart play from Ashton, as we see the roar coming out from Zapdos. Really, really interesting move here. Salamence is forced out in favor of that Amoonguss.
Yeah, I mean, that's not awful. Amoonguss being out here, not going to deal too much damage to this Pokemon, but Tapu Fini, certainly Calm Mind's not going to enjoy any potential Clear Smogs. Zapdos now back in the situation it was in before, where it's not going to be able to stop potential Spore into that slot. I thought the Roar might be targeting Aegislash to kind of get rid of that substitute, perhaps expecting that Salamence would switch out in the face of that Tapu Fini.
And we see a Roost coming out from Zapdos. Very good defensive play from Yuri here, just to be able to get his Zapdos healthy once again, and also prevent any Spores. It loses its Flying type from that move. And Muddy Water coming out from Tapu Fini at one stage of increased special attack should be enough to fade the substitute on Aegislash's side, doing not too much damage to that Amoonguss though. And Aegislash still in Blade form. Looks like it's going to be dropping an attack this turn. An accuracy drop going onto that Amoonguss. Another Shadow Ball coming out from this Aegislash. It will be going into that Tapu Fini, leaving it just in the red, but more importantly, activating that berry, getting 50% of its HP back.
Yeah, Ashton kind of working against himself there, but at least gets rid of that berry. And we do see the Spore, but Zapdos, we mentioned previously that, as a flying type Pokemon, it was going to not have the benefit of the Misty Terrain and be vulnerable to Spore. Roost puts it on the ground and then blocks Spore that way. A clever play by Yuri, although not one that's super repeatable. I guess you can kind of just trade your turns for Amoonguss's. Still going to have to try to find a way to get some damage going out from this Tapu Fini, most likely. Not going to do much to Amoonguss with either of these Pokemon.
The stance change activating for Aegislash as it goes back into its shield form. The slot on Alessio's side of the field, that left-hand slot, very, very prime for a Spore here. Zapdos will be attacking into the King's Shield, not activating its special effect. Muddy Water coming out as well, will be hitting the Aegislash. Amoonguss avoids though. Clear Smog coming out from this Amoonguss, going into that Tapu Fini, getting some nice chunk damage, but more importantly, reducing the stat increases from the Calm Mind.
Yeah, Mind a little less calm now, and it's actually in some danger too. I think it's just healthy enough that a Shadow Ball wouldn't knock it out, but likely a double target would. Zapdos now at full health. Still has to be concerned about the Spore from Amoonguss, which also limits any potential Landorus switch-ins. Still sort of a tough spot for Yuri, where he just can't really do any damage with the matchup of between these Pokemon.
His back is a little bit towards the wall, especially with that Amoonguss not being pressured too much at all. Rage Powder, a nice call from Amoonguss to be able to protect Salamence on the switch-in. We see Zapdos going for the Thunderbolt. It's going to be resisted. The Grass type not taking too much damage at all. Amoonguss loving being able to sponge attacks for its friends. Muddy Water coming out from the Tapu Fini as well. This is going to be reduced on both sides. Both Pokemon do not take too much damage from that attack at all.
And the Mist disappearing from the battlefield, so now even if Zapdos roosts, it could be hit by Spore. Tapu Fini has to be concerned about it. Really nice play by Ashton as well. That Rage Powder doesn't wind up doing a whole lot, but certainly you don't want to take the Thunderbolt into Salamence, and also avoids the possibility of any cheeky plays where Yuri tries to predict and use Moonblast.
Yeah, the speed of Salamence really showing pressure here as Tapu Fini is removed from the field. Ashton taking the early Pokemon advantage here. Zapdos forced to go for Tailwind, try and get some speed control up to be able to match and outpace the Salamence. Amoonguss moving last and going for that Spore, finally hitting into that left-hand slot, and Alessio Zapdos going to be taking a nap for several turns.
Yeah, it does get the Tailwind up, but that's really a momentum blocker for Yuri, where that second Pokemon now is really going to have to be able to do a lot. With Amoonguss on the field also sort of limiting what damage it can do. It's still a tough spot. Landorus winds up coming in. It does get the Intimidate off onto Salamence, but it has to be concerned now about being hit by a potential Spore itself. Certainly, Yuri could just deal with Amoonguss by using perhaps that Z move, but having to blow it on Amoonguss here, who could protect, could switch out, it's a tough spot. Ashton's really built a nice advantage in this second game. Yeah,
we could be seeing a Protect from Amoonguss plus a Dragon Dance from that Salamence, just be able to put some offensive pressure out there, get his physical attack stat back to neutral. Landorus will be wasting that Z move. Landorus protecting here, doesn't want to eat a Spore in case that is not the call that Amoonguss is going for. Amoonguss does protect though, so it was expecting a Z move going into that slot, did not want to lose Amoonguss so readily. Zapdos being still asleep this turn, so taking his first guaranteed turn of sleep, and there's the Dragon Dance. Salamence will be boosting its speed even further, but more importantly, getting its returns ready for full power.
So the boring-looking turns of the video game championships that wind up being critical plays, there's two really cute things there. Both players make a nice move. That Protect on Landorus, even though it seems kind of wasted, like, yes, if he just used Rock Slide instead or whatever, he could have done some damage. But by protecting when Amoonguss protects, now he can use the Z move into that slot if he'd like to without worrying about the potential protect. And then on Ashton's side, kind of also calling the same thing, gets Dragon Dance without having to pay for it. A really clever move on both sides. A high-level match, but when both sides are making good plays, the advantage goes to the player who's already ahead. Ashton still pushing his advantage and getting rid of one of those turns of Tailwind.
And with Amoonguss so low, that right-hand slot on Ashton's side of the field, prime for a Ground DMZ Tectonic Rage, because Salamence is already on the field. It's the only Pokemon that is immune or resists that attack, apart from Amoonguss. But Amoonguss will switch out. Its Regenerator ability will give it a bit of HP back. Landorus now has to go for this Tyranitar. If it's not able to knock it out with this Ground DMZ, we will see the weakness policy activating. Yuri does go for it, though. This is going to be the Ground DMZ Tectonic Rage. It's going to go into that Tyranitar slot. I imagine this is going to be a big knockout.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I guess you have to make a tough choice if you're Ashton there, where whichever of the three Pokemon you choose to put in that slot is going to get knocked out. So Yuri will take a big knockout here as we see the Tectonic Rage coming down. But perhaps assuming that Yuri's last Pokemon is Metagross, where Tyranitar wouldn't be super important in that matchup, certainly it'd be great against Zapdos, but it's that fourth unrevealed Pokemon from Yuri that is the biggest threat. So Ashton kind of just going on faith there and getting another Dragon Dance.
This is very, very dangerous if your name is Yuri Boschetto. Zapdos unable to do anything this turn, another turn of sleep. You can see how frustrating that is for Yuri here. And Salamence, a key threat now. Amoonguss, you imagine, will probably come back in and just start redirecting attacks away from Salamence. Yuri gonna have to rely on Rock Slides to be able to damage it, but with Salamence moving before the Landorus, this is a really, really dangerous spot to be in.
Yeah, not going to have to worry about the flinch fun that we sometimes see in this matchup, and Ashton has himself in a really good spot. Salamence not getting hit by a Thunderbolt that turn because Zapdos didn't wake up is really crucial. Now, even if we see Zapdos wake up now, Amoonguss can simply redirect the attack away, or Ashton can try to get cheeky with a Protect and a Spore. Really nice spot because, you know, that's a lot of health to go through in Salamence. It has very high defense, so without being able to do single target damage, it's going to be tough. And Yuri kind of forced to switch out here, get the potential of an Intimidate later before Salamence gets too carried away.
Yeah, so Landorus retreating in favor of that Metagross as Rage Powder does come out from that. Amoonguss wanting to make sure all Thunderbolts head towards it instead. Nice switch in for Metagross here. It is a resisted hit, but look how much damage that does with that increased stage of physical attack. Thunderbolt going into Amoonguss, who doesn't care in the slightest, really, Scott.
Yeah, Zapdos is a very defensive Pokemon. It's just not going to be able to do much against Amoonguss, an equally defensive Pokemon who also resists its attacks, and that is a lot of damage on the Metagross. Salamence, not really the sort of Pokemon you think of as one that's going to like burn through resisted attacks, but Metagross taking a little over half of its health there. Mega Evolution might be able to allow it to survive another turn, but yee.
A lot of damage to take on a switch in, forcing Yuri to protect one more time. Metagross not wanting to get them knocked out here. An Earthquake being revealed from Salamence. That's a very interesting call to make. Zapdos unaffected. Amoonguss is the only Pokemon that's going to be taking damage from this turn. To see how much it does to its own Pokemon. That's a lot of damage onto an Amoonguss.
Yeah, this could really backfire.
Yes, Zapdos going for the Tailwind here. So Metagross will be able to start putting in some big work here as the Spore comes out into that Zapdos once again. This is what Amoonguss loves to do. Sponge attacks and start throwing out those spores. And it's why it's rising in popularity towards this World Championship, Scott.
So this will wind up being a pretty good turn for Ashton, all things considered. He kind of played two different outs there. Well, all right, if my opponent's Metagross doesn't protect, I'm going to get the knockout with Earthquake. And if it does protect, there's not really any way that Zapdos is going to end the turn asleep. So he was going to get something either way. Now, likely going to need to switch out of Amoonguss sometime soon and get some its health restored by Regenerator. So Yuri's going to have to kind of find the right turn, switch Landorus back in, get another Intimidate off, try to keep that Metagross healthy enough to keep going. I can't see him getting through this without attacking with it a little bit, but also he can't let Metagross get stuck with Aegislash either. There's a lot of ways that this could go wrong for Yuri still, especially with the potential of Spore going on his two remaining flying Pokemon.
Yeah, I was about to ask you if you thought Landorus would come in on the Zapdos slot or if it needs to burn that first turn of sleep straight away. Yuri putting his faith in Landorus in that Metagross slot, getting that Intimidate onto Salamence back down to neutral attack stat as Rage Powder comes out from Amoonguss, playing things safe, making sure that Salamence is not going to be taking any damage this turn as it goes for another Earthquake here. So both Pokemon on Yuri's side of the field levitating, not taking any damage at all. And unfortunately, this is going to be a nice bit of damage into that Amoonguss. It's activating the berry though, so you can see on smiling on Ashton's face, he's thinking, okay, well, if you leave Metagross in here, I get that knockout, and if you don't, I activate my own berry, and I get even more health back on Amoonguss. This is a bigger threat for you to deal with.
Yeah, it's you know, healing Amoonguss is great and all. I'm not certain that's really what Ashton was hoping for there. At least he gets something. Was another opportunity for a free Dragon Dance. You know, I felt like earlier in this match, Ashton was kind of a step ahead, and that was a couple plays in a row where I feel like he was, even though he didn't really pay a lot for it, maybe he was getting a little ahead of himself, kind of failing to take advantage of his advantages. And now Landorus has managed to kind of negate most of the offensive impact of those Dragon Dances.
So Salamence will be on the defensive now. Landorus going for the Rock Slide on the Tailwind. It will be only hitting into that Amoonguss, which hasn't moved yet, so no Rage Powder coming out this turn. There's a chance it could be flinched. Amoonguss going for the Spore here, going to be landing into that Landorus. Zapdos still hasn't moved, which probably indicates a Roar coming out. So Landorus will be taking that Spore, and Zapdos stays asleep.
Yeah, it's, you know, this game is kind of stalled out a little bit, but Ashton probably feeling pretty good about that one. Landorus really needed that flinch for him to get much out of that turn where, even though Ashton didn't do any damage, having both these Pokemon asleep now means that Salamence is going to either get a free return off or a Dragon Dance. Also a good opportunity for Ashton to switch out perhaps, restore Amoonguss' HP, and that's exactly what we'll see.
Yeah, really smart play. That regenerate ability, so good on Amoonguss to be able to get HP back when it returns to its party. Aegis Slash coming in favor of Amoonguss. Return coming out from Salamence into that Landorus, and again, a whopping amount of damage coming out. 30 HP, another turn of sleep for Landorus. It was just taking its first turn. Zapdos also being asleep here. Amoonguss really taking control of this game, Scott.
Yeah, it's not on the field, but its impact is still being felt. That is a ton of damage on Landorus, and Yuri's kind of in trouble here. There's a lot of ways he could now lose both of these Pokemon, even if he switches either of them out for Metagross. That's not necessarily going to improve his position. No,
we see the wake up from Landorus, but it is going for the Protect. It is only at 30 HP. It needs to be able to protect itself. Yuri needs all the Pokemon he can to win this game. Return goes into the Protect. Zapdos finally waking up, going for that Thunderbolt. It will be going into that Salamence, which is the right target to make. Salamence survives, though. Very bulky, and Aegis Slash gets up a substitute. What a great pressure move from Ashton again. So hard to deal with Aegis Slash behind a substitute, especially when it's got such a high special attack stat.
Yeah, he's playing very conservatively here. I think the one thing to keep in mind, too, is also that alternate win condition. Ashton down to about a minute of your time. He's probably fine here, but if Yuri could stall out this game enough, maybe, but not going to do it there.
No, the Protect failing on the Landorus as we see Return going into it, picking up that knockout. Yuri down to his final two Pokemon now, Zapdos and Metagross. Going to be taking a trade here. Salamence going down after a Thunderbolt from Zapdos, but Aegis Slash free to move. It hasn't gone for King Shield this turn. It will go into its Blade form now, being able to drop a big special attack into that Zapdos should it go for it. We're going to see the Shadow Ball coming out from Ashton. It's going to be landing onto that Zapdos. How much will this do? We haven't seen this attack go into Zapdos before. Actually, we have earlier in the game. That's a nice chunk of damage, though, and activating the Citrus Berry, so wasting that berry on Zapdos, but still remaining behind that substitute, most importantly.
Yeah, Aegis Slash still relatively safe here, but we do get down to a 2-2 game. We talked a little bit earlier about how Yuri really wanted to avoid the endgame situation where it's his Metagross against Ashton's Aegis Slash, especially with the substitute up, really problematic. You know, stopping Tantrum is going to be a difficult way to try to deal with Aegis Slash. It's possible a Thunderbolt and a Stomping Tantrum at just the right turn could pull it off, but there's no way to stop Spore on either of these Pokemon now that Tapu Fini's Misty Terrain has long since been dealt with. So you're in a tough spot. He's really got to stall up those 50 seconds, I think. I can't imagine him actually just picking up the two knockouts.
Let's see what moves Metagross knows. We've seen Ice Punch, we've seen Stomping Tantrum. It's going to go for that Ice Punch into the Amoonguss, prioritizing that Pokemon. So much damage, not the knockout though. Thunderbolt coming out. It's going to go into the Amoonguss as well. Very nice double target from Yuri to remove such a defensive presence on the field from Ashton. Aegis Slash free to attack though. This is the Z move, so we finally see confirmation of what Ashton's been running on that Aegis Slash. It will be the Ghostium Z, a never-ending nightmare, going to be really scaring one of these two Pokemon.
Yeah, I think the dream is going to be over for one of these two. Whichever Pokemon's left is going to have to win a duel with an Aegis Slash behind a substitute. And it looks like it's Metagross going to take these super effective same type attack boosted Z move from Aegislash with only 77 HP, more than enough to pick up that knockout.
And Aegislash still sitting behind that substitute. Zapdos has to break it next turn. We'll have to take a Shadow Ball for its trouble as well. I think the damage trade is looking to be in Ashton's favor, and he might be able to take this game, Scott.
Ooh, I think it could go either way. I don't know if Aegislash is going to be able to knock out Zapdos either, and Yuri does have quite a bit more your time left. We've already seen Roost. I think Yuri can take this.
So we see the substitute fading, so Aegislash needs to be able to knock out Zapdos or put it in range now. It will be going for that Shadow Ball. 131 HP dropping down to 53, so Zapdos in the presence of being able to Roost this turn if he expects a King Shield coming out from Aegislash.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky play. We do see the Roost. Ashton calls it, doesn't use a King Shield here. He's going to need a critical hit or a special defense drop to get through this one.
So Zapdos' HP has been restored. Shadow Ball will be coming out from Aegislash again. Ashton going on the offensive, doing some good damage, leaving with 84 HP, but Zapdos able to take another of these Shadow Balls if it wants to, or just continue to Roost and just stall out this your time.
Roosting again, Zapdos gained a little bit of HP this last turn, going to do the same thing this turn unless there's a critical hit.
So Zapdos' HP almost back at full. Shadow Ball coming out from Aegislash once again, going into that Zapdos. Nice chunk of damage, and there it is, the special defense drop. And this is a real spanner in the works for what Yuri was hoping to do.
Poor Yuri, you kind of see him looking off in the distance there, like, oh, I had this one. Now it's going to be tricky, where he really does need to call a Roost and a King Shield to get a comfortable advantage now. Doesn't get it there. Another special defense drop would probably end the game.
Shadow Ball coming out from Aegislash. How much damage does this do with one stage of decreased special defense? A load of damage, over half. So Zapdos not safe here. It needs to be able to knock out Aegislash soon, because the Roosts aren't going to be doing too much if he gets another special defense drop. He does go for the Roost once again, so the your time stalling is working towards Yuri's favor, but Aegislash comfortable and happy just to keep throwing out these attacks. Going into Zapdos one more time with a Shadow Ball. Again, so much damage, another special defense drop, and Ashton looks like he's pulled this one out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really going to have to change the game plan for your Yuri here. You could still Roost a little bit, I guess, but, you know, you could probably only take 2 more Shadow Balls. I'm not certain that this one is going to work. Zapdos does have the pressure ability, though, so Aegislash is losing PP really quickly. This could come down to whether or not Ashton used all of the PP ups he could have.
Oh, that is a huge amount of damage. 39 HP remaining on that Zapdos. And you see Yuri shaking his head here. He doesn't think it's going to be doing too much. This might be the turn that he's going for attack. He is. That is a lot of hope coming out from Yuri's side of the field. Will Aegislash be able to survive? It doesn't!
How's that for an end game? It turns out he could have used Thunderbolt about a dozen turns in a row. Instead, making Ashton show off his World Championship button-mashing skills, barely using any your time, and then after all that, Zapdos just picks up the knockout.
I'm in shock, Scott. That was the most backwards and forwards endgame we've seen. Thunderbolt from Zapdos, proving enough to be able to tie this set up. Yuri taking one game, Ashton taking one game. This is round 2 of day 2 of the Pokemon World Championships, and it is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what a weird game or weird way for a game to end between such experienced players, right? I mean, you might expect to see that perhaps in maybe an earlier round match with some players who maybe are less experienced, but man, 2 of the best players in the world. It does make perfect sense, though. I wouldn't be shocked if that could have gone either way. Ashton likely using an Aegislash that trained pretty offensively, kind of using Substitute and his famous predictive ability to get around a lack of defensive training. So Zapdos's defensive training also probably meaning that I could have gone either way, but still, like, what a funny way for a game to end. I don't know how you reset and go to game 3 after that one.
Well, this is the question I was going to ask you, Scott. So with Ashton losing this game after making the switch up, do you expect that he goes back to the strategy that worked so well for him in game 1? Or do you think it's only certain in-the-moment decision-makings that failed him here, and he might want to continue going down the protect the Salamence, protect the Aegislash route?
I kind of like his game 2 strategy better, but I would have done it. I like what he did in game 1, but I like what he did in game 2 in the sense that I think the way Yuri adjusted to game 2 would likely have led to a win had Ashton did what he did in game 1 again. So kind of what it comes down to, I guess, is gotta anticipate Yuri's leads a little bit here. I think if he's going to protect Metagross as wisely as he did in that second game, the strategy that Ashton did in game 1 probably wouldn't work. But we'll have to see what happens here. I think that there's a lot of ways both these players can play this match. This should be a really fun game 3. I don't think either side has a team advantage.
If Aegislash was in Shield form, that would have been a win for Ashton Cox. This is such an intense game. We're only in round 2 of the Pokemon World Championships. Alessio Yuri Boschetto of Italy won. Ashton Cox of the United States of America. 1. Both trainers sending out their leads now. Suicune and Tapu Koko for Ashton, and Zapdos Landorus once again for Alessio Yuri Boschetto.
So, yeah, we're seeing the return of a speed control team. Landorus perhaps going to be a little bit more effective against us. Certainly have to be careful about the potential of an Ice Beam from Suicune. We've already seen that score a knockout earlier in the series, but the threat of a Z move and a Thunderbolt also probably not something Suicune's going to want to deal with either. I would expect Yuri to play a little more conservatively than that, but with 2 Pokemon out here that could take a lot of damage from Yuri's Pokemon, at least there's some risk going both ways. The last time we saw this, Ashton played very conservatively, just focused on speed control and trying to get easy switches into his more aggressive Pokemon. I'd expect probably something similar here.
Yeah, Zapdos and Landorus have a lot of offensive capabilities against that Suicune, but Ashton, a very, very careful player, very methodical and thinking about how he can get his best Pokemon in at the right time. Zapdos avoiding the Nature's Madness. That's half its HP saved by the miss. As we see the Z move coming out from Landorus now, it will be going on the offensive here, and the Groundium Z will pick up the knockout onto that Tapu Koko should it go into it, but into that Suicune, it puts it in range for sort of damage later on.
Yeah, this could be a big deal no matter what it hits. We'll have to see what Yuri thinks is more important. Does hit the Suicune, so now he's going to have to hope he does just the right amount of damage. Don't want to activate that Mega Berry.
It's just in range, and you can see that Yuri was hoping it wouldn't be. Thunderbolt going into that Suicune as well. The double up, he was going for that aggressive play, changing things up from how he's been playing previously, but Suicune, with its bulk, able to survive the turn and drop another Tailwind.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Ashton is probably breathing a sigh of relief there, but that's still not a great turn. Nature's Madness missing is really unfortunate. It's a very accurate move, just not perfectly accurate, and he really doesn't get anything out of that first turn. Volt switching now, trying to improve his position, and he's really going to have to make use of this Tailwind to make what happened in turn 1 worth it.
Yeah, you imagine something like Salamence would be coming in here just to be able to drop an Intimidate onto that Landorus and be able to threaten Pokemon going forward. It does come out. Landorus will be taking 1 stage of decreased physical attack, which is all important, seeing as Landorus loves to be able to throw out some Rock Slides and Earthquakes. Ice Beam coming out from Suicune, going into that Zapdos, putting pressure on Alessio's Tailwind option as well, activating that Citrus Berry, so the bulk of Zapdos really coming through here for Yuri. Earthquake coming out. Salamence takes no damage from that, neither does Zapdos. It's all down to Suicune, and if it can survive this Earthquake coming out from Landorus with 1 stage of decreased physical attack, great survival here. Suicune showing how bulky it can be as Zapdos matches Tailwinds as well.
Yeah, I mean, Suicune surviving there is great, but still, I feel like Yuri probably feeling a little bit better about this one. He just barely got through game 2, now has an advantage in turn 1. Turn 2 kind of still stays in a good spot. He's going to be careful with this Salamence, but Suicune almost knocked out. None of his Pokemon in real danger. He hasn't had to reveal his back Pokemon yet, and with him getting Tailwind up a turn later, that's going to be an advantage he can take advantage of in a couple of turns.
Yeah, we've seen that Zapdos hasn't got access to the Hidden Power Ice move, so it would be relying on Thunderbolts to damage onto this Salamence, and Mega Salamence has taken them quite well, so the combination of a Rock Slide and a Thunderbolt into that slot would prove a lot of damage going onto that Salamence. Tapu Koko coming out in favor of that Suicune, saving the speed control option and the damage option with ice type attacks for later. We see the Mega Evolution activating from Salamence now. Intimidate being gone, going to be replaced with the Aerialate ability, boosting its normal type attacks into flying type and getting a nice little damage increase as well. Return going into that Landorus, and it's going to do a huge amount of damage. You saw how much this was last game. U-turn coming out from Landorus, and that is a good opportunity for the Yuri to try and pivot. Now he's got Tailwind up as well.
Yeah, he's got an advantage here in positioning, going to really get that free switch, but this is still a tough spot. Zapdos is not going to be able to do anything really to Tapu Koko, so those Pokemon both being on the field is a wash. But Metagross can do a lot of damage to either of these Pokemon.
Yes, the Thunderbolt coming out from that Zapdos into the Salamence, and the Paralysis here, that could play a role in this game. The amount of speed reduction being probably vital here, as Tapu Koko probably would want to go for an Electro Web to be able to help out Salamence, but Metagross' Stomping Tantrum really putting some pressure onto Tapu Koko's ability to function here.
Yeah, that's a huge swing. Yeah, Metagross now can threaten a lot of damage to both of these Pokemon, and one of the biggest advantages of Mega Salamence is it's incredibly fast. Now, not incredibly slow, but certainly slower than any of the Pokemon we've seen from Yuri so far. We're going to make it much more difficult to take advantage of the situations that Salamence was exploiting in the previous game, and now even with the Dragon Dance, it'll be tough to get a speed advantage, and a single full paralysis on the wrong turn could be game-ending.
Yeah, and we've seen 3 of the 4 moves on Tapu Koko's side of the field. It looks like this build could be more towards an Assault Vest, so maybe there's not even an opportunity to be able to protect in that slot. Metagross will be using Protect though, and Electro Web coming out from the Tapu Koko will be reducing the speed of only Zapdos this turn. So Zapdos taking some nice damage. Electro Web is boosted by the electric terrain. More importantly, that speed drop is coming out, and Thunderbolt coming out from Zapdos into that Salamence, which does survive, moves last in this turn, and will be knocking into that Zapdos, leaving it in the red HP range as Ashton's Tailwind ends. So Yuri has the speed advantage going into this next turn.
Yeah, he's got a big edge here. And Ashton said you'd really like to try to find a way to get rid of this Zapdos before it can get Tailwind up again 2 turns from now. But there's not really anything stopping him from roosting.
Yeah.
Yuri's got a really great position where Metagross is going to do enough damage that Ashton is pretty pinned, most likely going to attack him at Salamence slot, since now, even if Salamence tries to use Protect, it might not succeed. And this game is looking great for Yuri.
Especially now that Salamence has Mega Evolved, the Intimidate options on on Ashton's side of the field are gone. So Metagross's attack stat will not be able to be decreased any further. So an attack into that Salamence will pick up a knockout and allow Ashton for a free switch, or if he makes that switch early, then something's going to be taking a lot of damage. Tapu Koko is actually going to be switching out though. Suicune coming in once again, so hoping that Tapu Koko can come back under once Tailwind is ended on Yuri's side of the field to be able to put out some Electro Web damage once again. Metagross will be removing its Clear Body ability, its bond with its trainer, going to push it through Mega Evolution, gaining the Tough Claws ability and upping some of its contact moves. It's going to be, Salamence is going to be protecting itself, so Ashton's still seeing some usefulness for his Mega Evolution. Stomping Tantrum going into that Tapu Koko slot. Suicune with such low HP will be knocked out here as well. That's a nice knockout for Yuri to take as Zapdos goes for the Thunderbolt, doesn't go for the Roost this turn, and it looks like Tailwind will be ending for Yuri once again.
That makes it a pretty decent play for Ashton. Suicune probably wasn't going to do anything throughout the rest of the game because of its low speed and low health. But that free switch is a nice deal where Tapu Koko manages to kind of get the team sacrificial version of Protect, where it can't protect itself, gonna have to throw one of its friends in front of itself instead, but does get back on the field without taking any damage. And now, since it's quicker than Zapdos, potentially able to deal some damage and stop that Tailwind from going up. Unfortunately, I'm not totally sure how Ashton's actually able to take advantage of that. You know, an Electro Web here isn't going to stop Metagross from targeting that Salamence slot, and we do see it switching out of battle.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, Colt, what you thought Ashton's final Pokemon would be. Aegislash, a very, very potent threat if Tapu Koko can get the Electro Web and speed control options going. Metagross instead is going to be taking a Volt Switch, so Ashton will bring Salamence in once again. If it does get knocked out this turn and some attacks have gone into that slot, then Tapu Koko will be able to come back in once again and put more speed control options down for Ashton and to be able to support this Aegislash. Salamence will be coming in. Stomping Tantrum does not hit into the Salamence slot, and Tailwind comes out from Zapdos here. So Stomping Tantrums, because it wasn't able to hit into the Salamence slot, it will be actually, this attack will be increased if it goes into that Aegislash.
Ashton's going to need to be careful with that. I wouldn't be shocked to see a King Shield go off here. Metagross no longer having that clear body ability to potentially help him out if he uses a physical attack in that slot, though. Stopping Tantrum, going to be a good way to go around it. Yeah, King Shield, got to play it safe. That Metagross is scary right now. Yeah,
Metagross's Stomping Tantrum does go into the King Shield, so it does take 2 stages of decreased physical attack, and that is not what you want to see if your name is Yuri Boschetto. You see Thunderbolt going into that Salamence, does get the knockout here, but now Tapu Koko able to come back out. Yuri still has the speed advantage, but he needs to be able to move his Metagross away from the field. Landorus looking like a really good option to be able to come in here.
Yeah, Landorus is going to be a scary Pokemon, and we still haven't seen Yuri's final Pokemon. Both of Ashton's 2 remaining Pokemon are weak against ground-type attacks, so Landorus is potentially going to have a field day, and it's tough to just see exactly how Ashton's going to get out of this one. It's going to be very important for him to use that Z move wisely. Perhaps going to try to find a way to get rid of Metagross without having to waste it, but you know, Landorus coming in at the right turn, absorbing an Electro-type attack could be really bad here. At least Tapu Koko's at high health. Ashton's going to have to be creative with this trademark support Tapu Koko if he wants to get out of this one.
It'd be interesting to see if Yuri still values Zapdos in this point in time and goes for the Roost. Stomping Tantrum actually just coming out from Metagross, even with the attack drops, wanting to go into that Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko does a lot, that actually survives really, really nicely there. As the Sky Drop comes out from Tapu Koko, going into that Zapdos, a very annoying move, allowing Aegislash to be able to get that substitute up, and Zapdos will not be able to move next turn because it outspeeds Tapu Koko currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd all assume the Sky Drop. I was trying not to say it just in case he didn't end up using it on stream, but I think that's a cool part of this support set that, where at least he can waste some turns with Tapu Koko. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but can kind of mess with Pokemon that maybe are a little bit more valuable than it is.
Yep.
Zapdos is probably not that Pokemon where I feel like maybe he would have rather gotten the knockout there if he could have gotten it, but Metagross or Zapdos likely going to be in trouble here. Stomping
Tantrum going into that substitute. It does fade, even with the decreased physical attack stat, so powerful. Zapdos coming down from the Sky Drop. So Zapdos, he's going to go for the Roost actually, so we'll be able to get some HP back. So Zapdos underspeeding Tapu Koko even still, getting a nice bit of HP back, and Aegislash going for that stance change, will go into its blade form. It has its pick of who it wants to attack into here. Doesn't go for the Z move just yet. Looks like it's going for that Metagross now. If this is in range for a knockout, it is. Metagross going down. That physical attack stat, meaning that it wasn't able to get a knockout onto that Tapu Koko, but putting it in range for this Landorus, and Aegislash very heavily threatened here. Both Pokemon on Ashton's side of the field very, very threatened by this Landorus now as it comes in and probably wants to throw out some Earthquakes.
Yeah, a lot of good that turn for Ashton, but this Landorus is still going to be tricky to deal with. It's not like this Tapu Koko has a move like Dazzling Gleam that could just knock the Landorus out. And since it's a flying-type Pokemon, Skydrop doesn't do any damage. Maneuvering around this one is going to be really tricky, especially because Yuri with that Roost has maintained the ever-important 37 turn Zapdos versus Aegislash dual win condition.
And this is a dangerous position for Ashton. He needs to be able to play intricately and cleverly. Tapu Koko going for the Skydrop onto that Landorus. Won't do any damage because it is a flying type, but it will allow Aegislash to be able to get a substitute up once again. Zapdos in a position now where it can go for the Tailwind and get the speed advantage in its favor one more time. So Tapu Koko will be dropping Landorus after it will be able to attack, though.
That could be a huge problem for Yuri. So now that Tailwind is active, I believe Landorus will move before Tapu Koko while it's in the sky and now not move at all. So Ashton can just pick up this knockout on Landorus if he wants it. This game is far from over.
Skydrop will be dropping Landorus back down. No damage dealt here. And we see the Thunderbolt coming out from Zapdos. It will be targeting into that Aegislash's substitute, which it doesn't mind too much. That's what substitutes are for. It will be able to drop an attack here. We saw no defensive play. Shadow Ball coming out from this Aegislash. It's going into that Landorus and we'll pick up the knockout here. Two of Yuri's big offensive threats being dealt with by this Aegislash.
Now Aegislash starting to pull Ashton back in this game. We're going to finally see Yuri's last Pokemon. It is Tapu Fini. So, it has a disadvantage against this Tapu Koko, but the Tailwind's still active on Yuri's side of the field. Likely going to need to focus down Tapu Koko, and that makes this turn really interesting. It can't use Protect since it has the Assault Vest. We assume, 4 different support moves. Pretty clear what's happening there. So if you're Ashton, maybe you try for a cheeky Z move, but if you go for it and Aegislash gets blown up, you're definitely going to lose this game. Really tight turn here. The game will probably be decided on this turn.
Aegislash needs to be able to get damage off, but it can't be knocked out here. So Ashton going for that King Shield, wanting to make sure that he can protect things. Tapu Koko needs to be able to survive this turn and go for the Sky Drop. It looks like we've got about 3 minutes left on the round timer here as well, so both trainers need to make their moves quickly. Carmine coming out from Tapu Fini, expecting defensive plays from that Aegislash. Special attack rising by 1 stage, special defense rising by 1 stage, and Yuri needs to start putting his foot on the gas to be able to make the most of those boosts. Electro Web coming out from Tapu Fini, reducing the speed on Zapdos and Tapu Fini on Yuri's side of the field. So this is going to be a very, very key opportunity for Ashton later on in the turn, and that attack goes into the Aegislash.
So pretty good play by both sides there. The time definitely going to be of the essence here, but the Calm Mind and Tapu Fini going uncontested. Still have the Tailwind a little bit longer on Yuri's side, and he gets the Thunderbolt in the Aegislash's slot, avoiding the potential of an unchecked Z move. It can be a little trickier for Ashton to get it off now. A Thunderbolt and a Muddy Water perhaps could be very dangerous for Ashton, who's got some trouble now, but Tapu Koko's Nature's Madness is going to do some big damage to Zapdos.
To do exactly half of the damage remaining on Zapdos here. Moonblast is the choice from Tapu Fini into that Aegislash. Single target, doing some nice chunk damage here. Thunderbolt from Zapdos will be going into that Aegislash as well. Is it enough to pick up the knockout? It is. That is the offensive threat dealt with by Alessio Yuri Boschetto. And with Tapu Koko not being able to do too much damage here, it looks like he's going to take this game.
Yeah, not too much left to do. Zapdos for the second game in a row able to pick up that critical knockout on Aegislash, and Yuri looks like he's going to survive an incredibly tight set.
Two amazing trainers from last season and this season putting in so much work. Alessio Yuri Boschetto going 2-0 in the tournament of Day 2 Pokemon 2018 World Championships. Congratulations.